So at this point, in Matthew, we see the eagle symbolism with the carcass. We see it in Isaiah chapter 34 in great detail. We're seeing it here in Revelation. And then we know that the symbolism for this Ephraim is also this eagle. And that we know that Ephraim is connected once again to these Danites, which are connected to the Anunnaki, which once again are depicted as these birds of heaven. Okay? And we're going to show you the incredible connections with all that and how it makes a perfect circle of understanding. If you just simply read chapter 17, okay, you're going to find out it's about the destruction of what? Babylon. But it's the destruction of commercial Babylon. Line 18 clarifies this. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth. The great city is New York City, which is being symbolized as the Big Apple. In other words, the full manifestation of that apple that was taken in Eden. Now it has developed itself and manifested itself into the fullness of that temptation as it spread over our world as commercialism. But this commercialism they have chose to symbolize in one place, and that is going to be geographically New York, of course the Big Apple. So that's where the sacrifice goes down. Now chapter 18 is where we see, in relation to the fall of commercial Babylon, we start getting this talk about these birds. Just as I said, that these birds are in relationship to the fall of commercial Babylon. That's exactly what we see if we turn back one more page. Now, people would get confused here because they see in chapter 19 it is reciting the return of the Lord. And then once again, after they try to put these description of the birds of heaven that are called to the sacrifice. But we know that the Lord appears after the Battle of Armageddon. So do not be confused with this recitation of the appearance of the Lord. It's just the description of him once again that in a sense is confusing because it's put before. But you all know that the Lord returns after this Battle of Armageddon, which you could closely associate in a way as it culminates in its finalization with the Third World War over this world. So that's going to be at the end of the tribulation period that Jesus Christ returns, as we saw clarified in Matthew, that it's representing immediately at the end of the tribulation period. So that's when Christ returns. So do not be confused here that the eagles are being shown here at the Battle of Armageddon. Basically, the eagles are being shown at the beginning, the kickoff for this battle, the continuous war, the polymos, which means continued war. I told you Obama starts it, the Antichrist continues it. Polymos is continuous war that is a great loss of life over time, not a singular event. So now we understand that these fowls of heaven are being called immediately after the sacrifice, which kicks off in major form this Armageddon. And that's where you would see that now they are being gathered together unto the supper of that great God. That great God is the God of this world, who they are going to sacrifice, in essence, symbolically, the Big Apple, New York City to, and the populations of the world, in which now we see is represented by all the symbolism here. So these eagles that are being gathered together at the sacrifice for this great God. In other words, Apollyon, to bring him from this pit, the dark night rising. That is the symbolism for this great God of this world. Please understand that. Please understand that and do your research further. So we see that these eagles now are important to understand because the eagles represent Ephraim. And Ephraim now represents the English Freemasons, which now politically represent and associate themselves as the United States of America. Very important. So now we begin to understand where this says it so well. For wheresoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together. That's the sacrifice. That's the same sacrifice that we saw in representation to Hosea that said Ephraim, the eagle, which is going to bring its children to the murderer. In other words, the sacrifice. So we see immediately after the tribulation of those days, that's when Christ returns. Now, who is the carcass, friends? And you're going to find out what the symbolism is all about. There's the carcass. I'll be back.